Hello and welcome into the Dan Presel Show. Charlie Harrison alongside head coach of the Badgers, Dan Presel. Coach, thanks for hopping on with us for our first coaches show.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, recapping what went on here since you guys have last been home, played a exhibition game with Southeastern Louisiana and then three more games, one with William Carey, took a 65-46 loss there, 76-61 lost to Allen, but then a good rebound win, 68-62 over Benedict.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple weeks on the road. We played in Southeastern Louisiana's kids game, so we played in front of 3,000 screaming kids. Southeastern Louisiana is going to probably be an NCAA tournament team, beat Memphis, beat Charlotte, just awesome team. Tough opponent, obviously, by the score. But I really wanted to give us our kids that experience. And then, so tough loss there, great experience. Follow up with William Carey, who was 12-0 at the time of our game. I don't know if they've lost since, but they were coming off of their ring night, just a championship level team. So I had the opportunity to play two national tournament level teams, one NAI, one D1. And it's tough. It's tough, but you learn more about your group going through those tough games than maybe a little easier opponent. And then follow that up going to Allen, which Allen's got it rolling this year. New coach, they're playing great, and they jumped on us in the first quarter.
Yeah,
and we, to our credit, we got it to 2 and made it a game in the second half. But then, like good teams, they made enough plays at the end to just hold us off.
right.
But credit to our kids, man. We fought, we stayed together, and we put together enough plays to get back in the game.
Yeah.
And then so follow that up with going to Benedict, which is a tough place to play, and just played great. We challenged our kids. It's really about winning the toughness stats, the rebounding. Limiting turnovers. Benedict plays a super physical trapping style, and it's a tough place to play. The gym's hot, the visiting locker room's tight. It's all the fun stuff. And credit our kids. We did a great job for 4 quarters of moving the ball, defending how we needed to defend, and then we out rebounded them. I think 6 or 7. Which was, to me, the key stat.
Yeah.
And then made 12 threes, which is always it's always helpful.
It definitely is. I want to start with that kids game. You mentioned it. You go in, it's a gym packed full of screaming children.
Loud, yeah.
I imagine there's nothing you can do to prepare for 3,000 screaming 8-year-olds.
No, well, there's not. And I've had fortunate enough to have experience in a lot of those games. And my thing to our kids was go interact with the kids. Because it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
And if you interact with those kids, and those kids they'll start cheering for you a little bit, even though you are the visitor. So and that kind of gets the nerves out also for a player.
I remember I was watching a kids game on TV, and they panned over, and what they were doing is when the opposing team would come up to shoot a free throw, the loudest section got a free piece of pizza.
Yeah.
And that seems like almost unfair to me.
No, it's fun. It's fun. It's hard, and it's just great experiences. And my whole thing with scheduling the game was just to provide our students, our players with that kind of experience, that Division I kids game experience.
Yeah.
Hostile crowd. I mean, hostile. I say that hostile, but it's a fun crowd.
Yeah.
It's a great experience. So obviously the score was very lopsided, but that's a great team. It's going to probably win their league and go on to the NCAA tournament.
Now, Coach, you've mentioned a lot of other good teams that you guys have played, but I want to kind of focus on the SIAC play for a minute. You guys have started off 3-1 in conference play, a 1-5 non-con. What's been going right for you in the conference? Have you guys made any adjustments, or is it just getting your feet under you and getting used to play?
Yeah, I think we scheduled very hard out of league to prepare us for the league, and so and for the most part out of league, even though it was 1-5, we competed at least at times with some really good teams.
Yeah.
And that's just all preparation for the league play. I've always believed that the only record that really matters is your conference record.
Right.
So, heading in, there's a kind of an old adage in college basketball: you want to sweep at home and split on the road.
Right.
And if you do that all year, you're going to be right there in the top of the league by the end of the season. So that's kind of what I've tried to live by, and I try to preach to our kids. So us obviously getting off to a good start with 2 good wins at home, and then being able to split on the road, we're where we want to be.
Yeah, it's always tough to play on the road too. You mentioned it. You lose that game to William Carey, you lose that game to Allen, but you get the win over Benedict. When you're on the road and it seems like the whole schedule is off and the road trip's not going the way you want it to, how important is it to end on that high note? And how do you motivate to get that last win?
Yeah, like it is. It's hard, but the thing about being on the road is it brings you together as a group. It's just you.
Right.
There's no outside noise or very little, and you can really focus on your team and being together and growing together.
Yeah.
And so I've always enjoyed, and I always just kind of like it's just us against everybody. I always feel like it's more fun on the road. So like I think we don't really talk about other than sweeping home and splitting on the road is the formula. We don't really talk about we need to win this game,
Right.
or worry about losing the game. We're more want to worry about the things that are gonna lead us to winning the game.
Yeah.
And so the concentration for us going to South Carolina was not turn it over to give ourselves opportunities offensively, because we're really good in the half court when we have an opportunity to get the shot we want.
Right.
And then be able to rebound and be able to compete physically and athletically with some of these teams in our league, which are a little bigger, a little stronger, a little faster than us.
Now, Coach, I want to talk about last week in particular, just because it's kind of a funky time of year, right? You've got exam season going on for these students, and then you come away from exams, and it's like, okay, next week final grades are coming out, and you've got all of that weighing on a player.
Yeah.
How do you control that environment? Is it easier or harder to do on the road?
Nothing is ever easy. Like a place like Spring Hill College, being an alum, I got a different understanding how finals work here in school. So once we get into finals, we gave them 3 days off to go be, college student, and finish up. And we had just got our grades. We had a 3.42 as a cum semester.
Very
Awesome.
nice.
Fantastic. Couldn't be more excited. That might be the biggest win of the year for us. And so, I want to let our kids be college students and not just strictly come here to play basketball. I want them to have a full experience. So I know, I if it means missing a practice or two during finals week to let them focus completely on it, then that's what has to be done.
Now, how hard is it at that same time getting into like game mode with that? I mean, you've got stuff going on around and okay, it's time to play. Are you just all right, we're here, it's time to focus in, or is it like, okay, this is your escape?
I think you hope it's an escape. You hope you have a roster full of kids that love to just play, and then they look up and they're like, "Dang, where'd the time go? That was fast,"
Yeah.
And I think if you have that, then you don't worry about all of the distractions and that. But at the same time, they are college students and they are young adults, trying to figure things out. So those are the real challenges, no matter what time of year it is.
Yeah.
Whether it's finals week, break, or middle of school,
Now, Coach, focusing on an individual player before we wrap up this first segment. Seems to me if like anybody's going to get a gold star for the first half, it's going to be Kellen Hunter. She's leading the league in scoring right now. She's playing great. What's working for her? And when you have a player who's putting up 20 plus a game, what do you do to improve her game or, make adjustments for her?
Yeah. She's awesome. She works really hard. She's just one of those kids that loves to be in a gym and wants to get better.
Yeah.
She has a goal of playing professional basketball, and ultimately I feel like it's my job to help develop her, be a small part of it.
Yeah.
She's always looking for ways to improve, and if you ask her, she's probably her harshest critic. If you ask her, she's not. She'll tell you what she's not doing.
Right.
So my job is to help her understand, how to be a pro, and that means on the court, efficiency has to keep getting higher, being more diverse in your game, being able to make sure your teammates are involved as much as possible, and still while knowing when to insert yourself. And then off the court, with rehab, prehab, treatment, those kind of things, and diet. So, she's awesome, man, and I don't have to worry about her, she's always looking for ways to improve.
Yeah.
The thing that's coming and it's already here is like she is the top guy on the scouting report.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be times like you saw with Albany State where they were just doubling her and taking the ball out of her hands, and that can be frustrating at times. And just getting her to realize, hey, we're now playing 4 against 3 though.
Yeah.
And that's good for us.
Now, when you have a player like that, though, like they're their biggest critic. I know because I'm that way. It's so easy to get in my head about stuff.
Sure, yeah.
How do you manage that with her and being like, look, you're okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you want to take it away from the high achiever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's a reason why they're successful. And she's not the only. We got a roster full of kids like her.
Yeah.
But I just think our job as coaches is to give them solutions, but also to kind of give them a little dose of what reality actually is.
Yeah.
Because it is, you start getting in your head, or you start listening to people tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, because they're your fans. It can be very confusing, and you can really put a lot of pressure on yourself. At the end of the day, we're playing a kid's game.
Right.
So we need to just, honor it and play it as well as possible, but also understand it's a kid's game.
It's got to be fun out there.
We're fortunate to do this. And most of us perform when we're enjoying what we're doing. We perform our best. So we're trying to constantly ground our kids with the reality of the situation and try to get them in that state of mind as much as possible.
There we go. Well, Coach, when we come back, we've got segment 2 on the way, previewing Savannah State coming in tomorrow. So we'll talk about it just after the break. You're listening to the Dan Presel Show.
This is the way down a path that leads to a place upon the hill, led by thought leaders, activists, and Jesuit princes. Among the hill is where tradition and a strong desire to do and achieve reside. Ingrained in rich tradition, filled with purpose, fueled by passion. Spring Hill College is for those who seek more.
Welcome back to the Dan Presel Show. Charlie Harrison, Coach Dan Presel, and some big opponents coming up this weekend, Coach. Savannah State coming in tomorrow, and then Edward Waters this Saturday. What can we expect from both of those sides?
Well, Savannah State, traditionally one of the better teams in the league. Coach that's been there for a long time. They were a Division I school, and they've transitioned back to D2, and he's been there the whole time. Does a great job. Year in and year out, going to be one of the most talented teams in our league. And so when you added a talented team with really good coaching, it's tough to beat. So for us, it's going to be, we're going to really have to be able to kind of neutralize their physicality and athleticism. And be able, and they do a good job. They got a lot of sets that they run offensively, and we're going to have to know what we're doing and our spots and how to try to take away what they're doing.
Okay, and then what about Edward Waters?
Edward Waters, man, they got a new coach. He looks like he's going to have that thing rolling pretty quickly. Lot of great, talented transfers. Some he brought from his last school, but other places too. And they present similar issues, but different. They play a little different style. They do run a bunch of sets. And they got a couple big kids that are really tough to deal with. Again, we're going to have to, in a different way, make sure that we're executing defensively so they can't get to the things that they want to do. And at the same time, offensively, being able to move the ball to get to the open shots and the shots at the rim that we want to get to.
Now, I have to ask you, as a coach yourself, would you rather coach against a guy who's been with a program for 15 years, you know what he's going to do, or do you want to see that new coach coming in who's still kind of getting their way of doing things implemented?
Well, I think it's like, if somebody's good enough to stay somewhere for 15 years, they're good. Right?
Yeah.
So that's a problem in itself. But the familiarity is kind of nice. I'm still relatively new to the league. We are, we're only playing Savannah once last year at their place, this time of year last year. Not super familiar yet, not like you would when you're playing these guys twice a year. Anytime a guy's good enough to stay around for 15 years, they're just going to be tough to play against them every time.
Right.
On the flip side, though, there is something to be said for being a new coach, new style. First time playing, I think there is a real advantage of that. I think we experienced that a little bit last year early on, being able to beat Clark. being able to win a couple games early, kind of sneaking up on people,
Yeah.
kind of. But like I've been doing this long enough, man. I like everybody. You have to respect everybody. You have to be prepared for everyone,
Right.
and you can't cheat the process of it. You can't cheat the game, and so. Again, it's more about us and doing the things that we need to do to give us the best chance to win.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's the first-year coach or a veteran coach.
All right, Coach, you're coming back to the home court. Opened up conference play 2-0. Played pretty well at home. What juice have you been getting out of the home court, and what are you kind of expecting the next couple of days now that we've got Christmas break and everything going on?
Yeah, it's been fun. It's always fun playing in the Outlaw. I think we've had some decent crowds, when school was in. Hopefully we get a few tomorrow and this weekend. I know with school out, it's kind of tougher.
Yeah.
Especially the students being gone because the other athletes here just really do a great job of supporting each other. So we're going to miss that. But it's just always fun. It's more familiarity playing at home. Your routine is a little easier. We'll see. We just got to play well. It doesn't matter where.
Yeah.
That's always the goal.
So, mentioned playing well. We talked a little bit about Kellen Hunter. Of course, you've got her, you've got Marta Duda, the number one scorer in the conference, the number one rebounder in the conference. They obviously attract a ton of attention. What's the benefit to knowing that somebody is scouting specifically to those players?
Well, I mean, it's good having really good players. They're both all conference level players, and they make the game easier for everyone and hard for the opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Marta, had 18 and 11 at Benedict in the win, and that was big. We've kind of moved her off of the 5 spot and been more of a 4 player, which plays a lot more like a perimeter player for us. And I know she feels like it's been an adjustment at times, but she's just been awesome. She's handled it so easily. And like probably one of the most in my 25 years coaching, like what you're getting out of Marta Duda.
Right.
Every day. Before practice, she's going to be the first one in there on her spot on the floor stretching every day. You know what you're going to get.
That Jerry Rice type.
Just the epitome of consistency and just high level performer. She's a 4.0 student, all conference player, and just absolutely consistent. So you can't beat that, man. That's as good as it gets. And as far as the team scouting and preparing for them, they're always going to. At this point, I think, Kellen and Marta both seen the different things that teams can do to them.
Yeah.
So as going forward, it's just, understanding what the teams are trying to do and then being able, there's always a solution for that.
When you bring in a big and all of a sudden you want to go, okay, you're doing great inside, but now we want to turn you into that 3-level scorer. How do you decide if that not only is something you want to do, because you kind of take away a little bit of that rebounding element sometimes when you do that, but also how do you decide if that is within a player's skill set?
Well, with Marta recruited her to be a 4 player last year, she ended up kind of having to play the 5 based on injuries and things happen, and like she's just really good. It doesn't matter what position, she could swing over and be a guard for us.
Yeah.
And so she's skilled enough and smart enough and intelligent enough. She'll be fine in any situation. So she's kind of a different case,
Yeah.
So.
But she can do a little bit of everything for you guys, which is nice.
Yeah, she shoots the 3 well, which she didn't get to do it as much last year as a 5.
Right.
Because schematically we got our 5s inside mostly. But that was there all along. And she did shoot enough 3s last year. So. I think the ball handling and some of the different kind of physicality on the perimeter has been an adjustment for her. But it's obviously, if you look at her stats and her performance, it's nothing she hasn't been able to handle.
Yeah. I want to talk a bit about the players around those 2 big ones. Of course, Jaleisha Mann's coming off her best game of the season. Yeah. Claudia Garrido has really been starting to find her shot from outside the arc. How do you as a coach look around and go, okay, here's our 2 primary players. How do you motivate the next man up?
Well, I want to play balanced, and we're a little imbalanced this year, and that's fine because every year you have to do what you have to do.
Right.
But like Tiana Smith and Claudia, along with Kellen and Marta, that's kind of been our core four guys, since last year, this year, for the most part. But like Jaleisha Mann she was the difference in our Benedict game. She's an unbelievable kid. Just shows up every day, model of consistency, just works. Teammates love her. Just a great kid. And I was so happy to see her kind of be the difference at Benedict.
I really was too. I feel for her sometimes watching her at these home games because I have not seen somebody have so many roll right back out. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world to see.
Yeah, you're right. And I just think, she's getting, every year you kind of figure out the shots you're going to get in the games and then you work on them. And she's done a great job of doing that and getting those. And you're right, the Benedict game, it was awesome because those same shots that were rolling out were going straight through. So very happy for her. And for us, we have two players that lead us statistically, but it's a balanced effort. Like Tiana Smith does a lot of the dirty work, rebounds with anybody. We ask her to defend the other team's best player. Claudia is kind of like the glue. She's kind of the guy that makes all of the stuff in between the plays, happen.
Yeah.
And is one of the best vocal leaders I've ever been around in all my years coaching. She's been shooting it really well all year. We've asked her to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
And she's kind of somebody that wants to keep the ball moving. And sometimes when you're doing that, you forget to shoot.
Right.
You forget to look for your plays.
All of a sudden, you're not the most important person anymore, and it's hard to imagine you being that person in the possession.
And I think, for me, the perfect possession, all 5 players touch the ball.
Yeah.
And, when we have those possessions, Claudia's usually in the middle of it. But, she can really shoot it and done a good job. Was 4 for 9 from 3 against Benedict. Doesn't get much better than that on the road.
It really doesn't. Now, looking ahead, these are the final 2 conference games before the Christmas break. You guys are in the mix of the top 6 teams. Everybody's got 1 loss right now in conference play. How big are these games for you guys? And is any score table watching going on? How much are you guys keeping up with the standings, and is that factoring in right now?
I think it's way too early to worry about that stuff. You start thinking about that stuff in February, and honestly, you probably don't ever need to think about it. Our job is to prepare and do what's needed to win the next game, and so try to get our kids and our staff. We try to focus on that, about winning today. We have a great practice and prep today, and then hopefully that carries over, and then we got to play well tomorrow and execute what we've prepared. So not really. It's so early, in league play. Not really scoreboard. I couldn't tell you what our standings look like. I know where our record is,
I can tell you'll be happy with the answer if I showed it to you.
Yeah, but I hear you, Charlie. But it's so early. It's just so, and I don't want our guys to, you can put the wrong kind of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
By thinking about stuff you can't control. And so, again, our job is to put our best product out there and worry about us and doing what we need to do. And a lot of the other stuff is just kind of fandom and distraction, and it's hard to be a fan and a player or a coach.
Not gonna lie though, I love that answer because people, this has been big in college football this year, right? Everybody was playoff watching down the stretch of the season. And it seemed like nobody really cared about the game in front of them. It's nice to hear a coach say, look, I'm not interested in lobbying for 6 months from now. I'm interested in tomorrow's game.
Yeah, well, in today's prep. And I honestly, Charlie, that's the only thing any of us can control.
Right.
So, all the other stuff, like I said, is hard to control. And, you gotta live in the present, to be good in the future.
All right, Coach, final question today for you. If you sent a list off to Santa Claus, unbasketball-based answer, what are the 3 things you're asking for this year?
Oh, my gosh, man. You put me on the spot there.
I know it's the hardest question I've got today.
This is, man, I don't know if I can give you 3. We've never been a huge gift family. Christmas time for me is, I always call it's circle the wagons time because it's just us, me and Jill and the 2 kids and our 2 kids, and it's just fun, and we're just in the house for a couple days together.
Yeah.
That, to me, the number one is having my daughter come back and being there, and hopefully my son will stay around and not be out at the soccer field practicing or playing, so we can have some good family time.
Yeah.
I think that's probably like one or two. And then maybe, like, listen, selfishly as a fan, maybe we can get a Celtics repeat. How about that? I'm a Boston Celtics.
You know what? I'll take that. I'm a Celtics guy myself.
Son of a New Englander, lifelong Celtics fan, Boston sports fan. So maybe a good time with my family and a Celtics repeat.
There you go. And we asked Coach Kennedy this, so I'm going to hit you with it too. You can grab a cup of coffee with anybody, living or dead. You get 30 minutes. You can ask them whatever. Who are you picking?
30 minutes. Man, that's a tough one, man. I can only imagine what Craig said, being the history buff he is. It'd probably be somebody on my dad's side, like his uncle Howard, or maybe somebody from his side a couple generations ago, just to kind of understand the family a little better and maybe myself a little better.
Coach, you have the most down-to-earth answers to some of these questions, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
Just kind of understand why I do some of the things I do.
There you go. And I'll ask this too. You mentioned it would be nice to have your son in, not out on the soccer field playing and practicing. Yeah. As a coach, do you love to see it, though, when he's out there taking kicks at the goal when he could be inside chilling out?
It's awesome, but, he won't let me coach him, which is fine, because I think he picked a sport that I was just a fan and not very, have a lot of knowledge. And that's probably worked out great with my daughter as well. She does equestrian. I don't know anything about it. I knew horses existed. That was it.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's awesome. But it's his. It's not mine. And so it's his passion. It's his love. It's what he wants to do. And my job as a parent is just to help him to get there. So yeah, I wish some of our players worked as hard as him, but that has nothing to do with anything. So.
All right, Coach. Well, appreciate your time. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back after the new year. This has been the Dan Presel Show.